So what are the different paired motions in the hip?
Flexion and
Okay,
abduction and adduction.
okay,
And internal external.
okay. And then you just know how to do this with the goniometer. How do you do internal external rotation of the hip with the goniometer or inclinometer? Anybody
the
want
toes?
to come? What's that?
Was it the toes? No.
Yeah, you want to come up and demonstrate this?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. If you don't want to be on YouTube, like we can turn the camera on. Like I said, if you get one of these things here, right now 90 is at the bottom, so I'm just going to put this on here and make this 0 right here, and then just turn here, and then all you do is just read right off of here. And then we can practice going over the dorsal lumbar flexion extension. So remember, if you have a goniometer, you're going to do thoracolumbar measure together. Okay? And then remember that the normals that are in the notes in the text are actually for lumbar by itself. So what's the difference between using a goniometer to measure lumbar range of motion or thoracolumbar range of motion and an inclinometer? What things are you measuring when you use an inclinometer? I mean a goniometer.
You're measuring both together.
What's that?
You're measuring both the hip flexion and the lumbar. You can't separate them.
Well, actually, in this case, it'd be 3. It'd be, I mean, you could, if you pointed towards, let's say, here, then you could measure lumbar and pelvis.
Okay.
Or if you point all the way up to here, then you measure thoracolumbar. But that's the main difference, is that when you use goniometer, you're not taking the hip out of the picture. So therefore, the normal should be higher. Usually it's considered, if you're measuring against this, about 90 would be considered normal for thoracolumbar range of motion versus, what is it, I think 60 for flexion, lumbar flexion. But then when you do lateral flexion, you're still not really taking the hip out of it as well. Well, I mean, you get a little bit of movement in the hip, but it's not as much. What you could do is you could have the patient seated, so then that's more likely going to lock the hips when you're doing lateral flexion. And then rotation. How do you do rotation for a lumbar? Goniometer. Ready? Yeah, it's one where you kind of just wing it, basically. You're putting this down, and then what's the fixed arm in relation to? It's going to be right here, right? So it's an imaginary line like through the hips, for example. And then the mobile arm is going to be, what are you going to use for a reference for the mobile arm? Anybody awake out there, or too early? What's going on here? Yeah. Both, yeah. So both across the shoulders. Okay. Then when you do that with inclinometers, and that's where you get into everybody used to do that when you're a kid, right? So then what else do we have for range of motion? Actually, we probably should go over the abduction of the hip. Anybody want to do that? You want to demonstrate that? I'll jump up at once now. Okay, so how do you measure range of motion and abduction of the hip? Where do you think the fulcrum is going to be? It's going to be on the side or on the front? What plane are we moving in when you do abduction? frontal plane. So that then whatever you're using on the abdominal column is going to move in the frontal plane. Okay, so where do you think the fulcrum of motion is going to be? Yeah, so you probably would go, ideally you want to be right over the actual hip joint, so be inferior to the AIIS, or ASIS. Let's see, what does it actually specifically say in here? Yeah, so ASIS. And then you're going to do the fixed arm is going to be an imaginary line across the pelvis like this. And then where's the the mobile arm going to be? What are you going to be aiming towards? Yeah. But I mean, more specifically, you're going to be on the long axis of the femur. We're going to aim towards probably the patella or tibia tuberosity, something like that. And then if you're doing it, usually you're going to do it, let's see, abduction you could do sideline, but if you're going to do both of them supine, then you have to do something to get the other leg out of the way, right? Right. So what else is there for range of motion? What's that?
Flexion and extension.
Yeah. So you just don't, now what plane is that movement in? There's 3 planes, right? Is it frontal? Okay. Is it transverse? So then what's left? Sagittal. Okay. So then, if the plane of the goniometer or the inclinometer is going to be in sagittal plane, where are you going to put the fulcrum at? Going to be on the front, side, back? Side. Okay. Yeah, so granitotrochanter, so you're just measuring back and forth. All right, so we talked about thoracolumbar, hip, knee. That's basically what movements you have that you measure in the knee. Flexion extension, yeah. What other movement happens at the knee? Yeah, you do have some rotation. That's only when the knees flex like this, but do you measure that? No. Okay, then working our way down, what's left? Ankle. Right. So we'll start with the ankle. And let's see if I can pull that one up. Okay, so then for ankle plantarflexion, dorsiflexion, where do you put the fulcrum at? Yeah. And then where's the fixed arm going to be? On the fibula? Yeah, I mean, basically it's the long axis of the lower leg, and then you're going to aim towards the fibular head. Because if you're going from the lateral malleolus, it makes sense to go to the fibular head here. Okay. And then this is one situation where actually like I mentioned before, a lot of times to measure range of motion, you're going to end up moving around the fulcrum. Because if you have certain landmarks that the fixed arm is going to be on and the mobile arm is going to be on, and you need to move them in a different position to follow that. So in this case, I would tend to go line this up more along the 5th met for the mobile arm. So that means that your fulcrum may not be right at the lateral malleolus. I mean, it's more important to have the fixed arm and the mobile arm on the right landmarks, and then you can move it around with variations in rotation or whatever. The fulcrum is going to change. So basically, you're measuring like this. Okay. And what joint does that motion occur at? Talofibular? Yeah, the ankle mortis, which is the tibia and the fibula and the tail.